Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title is important, and the title is A Species No Longer in Denial of Its Greatness. And what does that really mean? What is the greatness of our species when we're told by some of the sharpest minds that extinction is the way? That it's like whether human beings survive at the end of ends, it's as if the world breaks. And not in an apocalyptic style, just the transformation of energy from its phase. Sorry guys, I'm looking for this quote here, and okay, there we go. So, sorry for the short pause, guys. This is I was looking for this quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. He says, "In some remote corner of the universe, poured out and glittering in innumerable solar systems, there once was a star on which clever animals invented knowledge. That was the heartiest and most mendacious minute of world history, yet only a minute. After nature had drawn a few breaths, the star grew cold and the clever animals had to die." This quote is from Friedrich Nietzsche. And he's saying that it's as if compared to how long the universe is being estimated to be, we are like a minute of human existence. That means we are kind of zoomed in on a personal level, and the human species is our whole life, you know. But when you zoom out and imagine if you were a being counting galaxies, then you wouldn't be worried about a species on Earth. Now, whenever there's a discussion on greatness, there's a greatness that is unexpected. You don't have an image for it. You just reach it. And then there's a greatness where it's in accordance to something the person wanted. So a species that is no longer in denial of its greatness is a species that doesn't have more explanations of why. It's like literally the balance is, how would I say it? If you as a human being, you look at your species, you look at civilization, you look at the effort of human beings, and you don't feel great about it, imagine. You don't feel it's going to be a great outcome. You feel we're just animals that are so careless, at some point we're going to explode, we're going to destroy ourselves, we have nuclear bombs and whatnot. That's like a fear that I can't tell you how many times on YouTube videos I've looked around online I've seen. That people are like, holy shit, are we just hoping nobody does something extremely chaotic for the whole species? And I realized that here's the thing. You can speak about greatness, you can talk about it, but the only way it happens is if the challenge to be great arises. And people don't realize. People want life to be easy. I want you to imagine right now, you had everything you ever wanted. You know, you knew everything you ever wanted. What then? What after you have reached the ultimate pinnacle of your own individual existence? Perhaps then you will pull the curtains of your individualism and wonder if the collective is breathing. That is the power of the human being. It does not it exists alone, but it cannot live alone. And so there needs to be these pillars of honor in the life of every individual. The pillars of honor of their own effort and the effort of their species. That means the person should look in the mirror and feel proud. The person should look at the civilization and feel proud. Feel as if greatness is accelerating. Because it's all about progress. I mean, even right now, if nobody cares about the species or anything, some progress is happening. It's just that if we have our attention in the right place, the right things may happen. And people are not feeling great. People are fighting for little values, not recognizing that it's the story of the human being that has to advance and change. So how we change the story of the human being suggests the story of greatness we're telling ourselves. And it depends on how you hold the past. If you hold the past as cruel, you have endless justifications. Do you know? Do you know somebody who feels pushed by the world will go on pushing everyone? Unless that person realizes the world never pushed them. They pushed themselves into a state of mind where they were pushing. This is a question that I find every living human being as part of the human species must ask. You must ask yourself, after you have achieved all that you wanted in this individual life, what is left? And what does the species do? It's the only thing that I know my ancestors will see about me is how I live now and what echo, what it sent forth into the world. Because the void is there. Before you were born, it was there. And after you pass away, you're going to meet the void. So only now we exist to experience. And it's very complex because right now the human responsibility on this earth is in the passenger seat. It's in the passenger seat. What does that mean? That means people don't want to drive towards new destinations. People want to be driven. It's as if, imagine one day all the pilots of all airlines were like, we're tired of piloting people. You know, I want like a passenger on board to pilot. I'm bored of piloting. Do you know how many people would scream mid-air if the pilot of the airplane was like, sorry guys, I'm bored flying this. Somebody else go and try. You see, that's the thing. We need to add to this system of humanity advanced communicators and pilots of consciousness. And the only way that can happen is if the advanced communicator has a will. You have to want to see something different to see something different. And that want must surpass your belief. In an emergency, does it matter what you believe or not? Do you know? Imagine the human species was under attack by aliens, for example, like we see in movies. And imagine you were a person from one religion, you were a person from another religion, or you were completely two different people. Do you know? In that moment, the language of human design that we share surpasses the language of the extraterrestrial design that the extraterrestrial has. So our humanity is a language we are living through. And that language surpasses any image, any color, any subjective imposition of what meaning could be. You see, on some level, I can't avoid, nobody can avoid. This thing that we call knowledge, it has been passed down through the centuries orally. People have spoken, and ears have cared to write for the future. Now, poetry aside, even though the subtitle is Roar of Every Poet, I feel the whole game of human existence isn't that complex. It isn't that people have individual destinies that they need to accomplish, and if they don't, they fail. It's just that you open your eyes, and a percentage of what you see is unknown, and a percentage is known, and that's a good thing because it gives your knowledge a space to grow. If you knew everything in this cosmos right now, you would have no reason to move. You would have no reason to be embodied anymore. And seldom is this said, the more you truly go at the core of knowledge, you find a presence that is no longer individual. That means knowledge was never, true knowledge was never for human beings. If they access true knowledge, they cease to exist. From one angle, if you look at it from the past, the human species has just grown up. The only thing we can do is celebrate the past. You know? That's the only thing the past really is good for. You know? It's like your life right now is a combination of events that have happened, events that are happening, and events that will happen. And the events that have happened, the definition is very clear. Their implication is, I mean, relatively clear. Some experiences that happen to a person, that experience years later might make sense to them, might suddenly be comprehensible. So there was a view on the world, there is a view on the world, and there will be a view on the world. Now, the relationship of the past with the present is the denial part. A species in denial is the past is speaking louder than the future. You know what that means? That means you wake up tomorrow, imagine, and do you feel more free or less free? If you feel less free, it's as if you, the inner realms wanted to move a certain way, they didn't. How a human being comprehends their past will suggest how open their eyes are to the future. And the past, at most, you can honor it and accept it. I don't know what people can do with their past, you know? Usually in, excuse me. The past is a film you saw. The present is a film you're acting in. The future, a film you will direct. We have to look at the value of what is here, and then usually decisions arise. There's observance before action, especially that's the capability of the human being. Rather than just running up a tree, you could look at the tree and wonder about what is the best way to climb it, you know? Rather than just attempting to solve a problem, you can look at how the problem has been seen. You know, there's something about philosophy that actually brought me out of a sort of intellectual solitude. Most people feel overwhelmed by what is going on in their world. You know, I don't know how many human beings I've seen on YouTube. How many people I've seen on YouTube, YouTube where these people, they feel they can't see. They feel that they don't know. And this feeling of don't know, it is okay, it is humbling. Socrates even said the only true knowledge is to know that you know nothing. But for how long? For how long can you be just a bewildered fool walking this earth? After some point, you gotta look at your own hands and wonder what history requires to build. If the species could create a global community which all human beings are engaged in this intellectual game to wonder, what does greatness mean? Can we have some people on TED Talks talking about the greatness of the species, please? You know, it's like so many people feeling they're experts on the past. How can you be an expert on the past? The past is past. It has passed away. Do you know that means? I was like, when I was reading history, and I'm like, oh my God, are we glorifying dead people? But the thing is that it doesn't matter how long the body is here to play its own game. That means you're here to survive. As long as the purpose of life is continued, stick around. That's it. You want to know what you need to do for the survival of the objective realms? Maintain them until as long as you stick around here. You know, because there is something that transcends the human framework, which is an action engaged in the present because the value is in the future. Do you know? Like how many men in the world have bought flowers for their girlfriends? Yeah. Like if animals could be conscious, they have a reason to like you know, it's like flowers could potentially hate men. Yeah. Who was it? Osho? Osho had this thing where he said, you pick a flower and you give it, for example, to your loved one, not realizing you kill the beauty of one dimension to give it to the beauty of another. When you pick the flower, that means it's like many men have gotten flowers for their girlfriends. But the thing is, instead, if they were wise, they would bring their girlfriend to the flower garden so her eyes could see the whole field. You see? Everything has a cost. Of course, anybody who gets introduced to economics, that's honestly like one of the first ideas you see. There's no such thing as a free lunch. The story goes that there was this king, and he gathered around all the, experts in economics at the time, and he's like, summarize this, give me turn all this knowledge about the economy into like, I don't know, like a presentation for me for a day, like a day presentation. And then the economists get to work and they summarize all of economy, all its teachings for a king. Long story short, these economists constantly keep coming to this king and they're like, King, we summarized it for you. And the king's like, I'm busy, make it shorter, make it shorter, make it shorter. Until the king or something he's on his deathbed and he's like, what is the meaning of economics? And all the economists are there and the king says, turn it into a sentence. He's on his deathbed. And so there the economist said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. What does that mean? That means there's an exchange of subjective value over objective expression. And when you as a human being, you understand this, you open up to the realm of work in multiple ways in accordance to how you've been conditioned. You know, people want to be like each other. I think that's never true. I think people never want to be like each other. You know, they want to be better, whatever that means. You know, that means if the person had a chance, let's say some guy's trying to go to Wall Street, let's say like those films we see. Okay, let's make this incredibly animated and hilarious, okay? Imagine a wolf, an actual wolf, one day attains a sort of strange human consciousness, and the wolf is like, I need to go make money from stocks. You know, and an actual wolf stands on its two legs and walks to Wall Street. You know, this is like the story of the actual, literally the actual wolf. And what happens is that this wolf goes to Wall Street. This actual wolf. Like imagine in Wall Street everybody had their phones back in the day. You know, so imagine a wolf just walking. You see, that wolf would want to become his own wolf of Wall Street. You know, it's like, believe it or not, the mind is probabilistic. It sees ways it can do something, it can see ways others can do something, it can even compare all these ways to even abstract ways that it could even see itself again doing something. When I think about a species no longer in denial of its greatness, first I think about what does it mean to be in denial? What does it mean for a species to be in denial? And I thought if a species potentially is existing in multiple dimensions, but is convinced that everything it sees is only limited to visible conditional materialism, do you know that is like a denial of the greater exploration of what the mind could be. Right now, there is no room left. Do you know? That means on some level, I do understand. We're not just living in a world where there's people. There's ideology walking too. You know, and just like people walk in the streets of cities, ideologies walk in the streets of people's minds, in people's visions. You know, when you see a human being, they're not just a physical mass. You know, they are the potential of what that physical mass can do. So imagine you were a great violin player, and then you forgot you were a violin player, you know, and somebody told you, hey man, just pick up the violin, see what happens. You know, and you picked up the violin and you became you suddenly realized you're an incredible violinist. And so you were in denial of your own ability, which you had not remembered or had not realized the ability was there. This is why you're a fool in every new thing you try. Just try it, you know. And, you know, it's like I remember when I was really young, I would go to my cousin's place and we would play these video games. And if the video game was something I hadn't ever played before, there would be two options. When I just improvise, I would be great at it and it would be hilarious. Like my cousin had played this game for so long and he knew every move in it, and then I just randomly pressed buttons and I defeated him in this versus game, you know? And it was like I didn't know at that point. It was just randomity. It was like being the fool in that game, yet by having the comfort to be the fool in that moment,